moderators. Just let me know if you can hear me well, please.
I can hear you. Yeah. Hi.
Great.
Hi, Liana.
Thank you. So,
hello and good morning and afternoon and evening.
Good to hear
Hello.
you. We'll just wait a bit more for the people to come. Hello, Flavia. It's good to be back here again to approach this interesting subject. I really love it. Okay. Hello, Philip. Great. So slowly we're getting in the space. It's I was just thinking this morning that we're going through the transit of the 55 and that it's going to be a really interesting conversation because the spiritual ego one way or another keeps us in a victim state, and I'm really curious how this will play out today, what the contemplation will bring forth, and I'm really happy to have you both here. A quick introduction about the room, and then I'll let you to say your hellos, and maybe if you feel to say something about yourself and the topic, if you feel like it. So we have a contemplative Hearth every 2 weeks, and we are contemplating and immersing ourselves in the transmissions that Richard Rudd offered through the free materials. And we're quite grateful for this stream of resources that he offered. And we just let ourselves be inspired by the next topic and the next topic and see what comes to meet us. And about, I think this is our third meetup on the spiritual ego. This material came into the field, so we've contemplating by now about 6 aspects, and today we are going to see what the next 3 have to teach us, to tell us, to reveal about us. So today we'll be talking about the spiritual cynic and the spiritual sniper and the spiritual conspiracy. And that's a very, very large frame for today. Welcome everybody. And I'll pass the mic to Carrie or Joshua if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this one. And hello, I'm Joshua, by the way. And I'm really excited about this one, because just the way that this has unfolded over the past couple of, contemplations and discussions has been just absolutely beautiful. And so this is turning into something I look forward to every couple of weeks. So I've been on my spiritual journey now for quite a few decades, and came into the teachings of Gene Keys and the human design by extension over the course of just last year. And found that they deeply resonated with me, and started tapping in to some of the transmissions that Richard shares, and I found them to be very poignant in many, many ways. And so that's kind of what's led me to be here, even though for the most part I have, kind of separated myself from a lot of the Clubhouse things, but this one and the energy in this space is very clear and very pure, and it's something that I appreciate very deeply. And so that is why I have chosen to participate. And I thank you all for coming along for the journey.
Well, yeah, Joshua, thank you for that. I just love hearing that clarity in your voice, and it just sense there is the, brotherhood of enlightened souls that are coming online here and really welcoming a balance between, the divine feminine. And so I welcome that and welcome you, Joshua, and really want to extend my gratitude to Leanna for inviting me here as my first ever co-host experience. I am also new to Clubhouse and have been active just in the last couple of weeks, say last 3 or 4 weeks. And so I have been just going to Clubhouse for anything that is gene key related and sort of been putting my boundaries within that sphere. Whenever anything with gene keys comes up, I've just been exploring and, allowing for this openness within me at this time. Because it is winter here, I have the availability to be able to come and take some time to listen in and share. Now, when the summer comes, I'm not sure how that will play out because I'm never indoors. So we'll see how that will play out. But I'm really grateful for being here. And this room did draw me in very deeply, like Joshua said. And I'm just grateful to be able to share and be able to allow some insights that may help others on our journey. There are many people that are really curious still about gene keys and that are fairly new, that a lot of the lingo may discombobulate some people. And these are sort of where this topic of this egotism or spiritual ego has to be tempered, because often we say, oh, I'm gene key this and that, but really a number, for me, a non-mathematician, numbers really kind of just don't resonate as much as sort of somebody describing that gene. So I take a little bit of softness with that, and I want to allow everybody to feel free to share in whatever is on your heart. And thank you again for letting me be here.
So thank you, both of you. I'm so in love with this synchronicity of you coming quite recently or returning in the field of the Clubhouse. And it happened just that we've met in the contemplation of this topic. And I really felt that both of you have something very valuable as a presence and as a wisdom to share. And for me, it's quite an honor and a joy to have you here. And it was so beautiful. Like it was like something on the biggest tapestry of things of Clubhouse. Just send a little notice bell that somebody is here, somebody returned, and let's invite them in. So I'm really happy to have you here, and I'm really happy that I got to know you as much as one can in this kind of spaces. And there is something really, beyond words that happens when we come together with an open heart and an open mind. So thank you really deeply for accepting the invitation and for co-hosting this. As Carrie said, it brings balance, and I feel like I can go deeper with you two here. So thank you, and I'm really grateful for everyone who is listening now and who will be connecting with us later through the replay. And before we actually start before the first aspect of a spiritual ego will call us to dance with it. I just invite you to a small attunement, just to bring more of our presence in the here and now. I know that if you already offered and given yourself this space and this pause of reconnecting with yourself in the end by reconnecting with others, you're already somehow attuned to the field. We're just taking this a bit deeper. So we just acknowledge our body, the space we're in, our breathing, and as much as possible, we just make it a bit deeper and a bit longer. We let the exhale just be a bit longer and the inhale to go a bit deeper. We now know that when we take our body along in whatever journey we have, especially this kind of contemplative, conscious, aware journeys, the experience is much richer. So we're just feeling the feels, and slowly we also become aware of the space of our heart, a very special portal of our being. And I have an image now coming. Maybe it's related to the freedom that we are inspired with during these days. How the heart expands itself in a kind of a huge hug in front of us, and it expands itself with some huge wings behind us. This is the freedom to love. And we just let this embrace us. And we go a bit further with our awareness towards our crown or our head. And we make some space there. We let everything settle down. We open our minds. We know we are safe. Our body, our heart are keeping us safe so the mind can relax and open to receive the blessings of the higher realms and the higher aspects that are also part of our being. And now in the end, we just bring everything together. Body, heart, mind, in their most balanced and true frequencies. And we also become aware of the presence of others, the presence of the transmission, the presence of the beings that brought this beautiful wisdom in the world. And we can open the contemplative space. I feel to invite each of every of you present to just be the voice for what needs to be said right now, even if you have no clue about the topic or about what you're going to say. I just want to invite you to just be a conduit for today's contemplation and coming together. And whenever you feel that just you have a little hand at the bottom of the screen, you just press that and we will just invite you on the stage to share your being and your wisdom. And thank you everyone for communing into this attunement. I'll just say a few words about the first aspect, and I'll let Carrie and Joshua to continue the thread. We have the spiritual cynic, which Richard was saying it's a bit of a close call to the spiritual skeptic. The difference is that the spiritual cynic is connecting to, various bodies of wisdom or tools or spiritual philosophies, and it's just finding flaws. There is maybe there is a mistrust there, but mainly it's about finding flaw or looking for hidden agendas in the knowledge, in the transmission, in the system, in the tool. So that's what it usually inclined to do. And Richard just shared his way of now approaching this type of how to say connection with this aspect. That he felt it more coming towards him and towards his work, and it was related mostly with the reviews. As an example, he told us about the reviews he gets on Amazon about this book, and how people are more inclined to look for the one-star reviews. So we are more inclined, even myself, I admit that I'm looking at somebody found a flaw, let's see what the flaw with this is, and then decide if I want to go forward. Because maybe, who knows, the 5-star maybe are friends, or maybe people being paid to do good reviews and stuff. But in the end, it's a good thing. Maybe starting from a bit of mistrust, you begin to enter with not with enthusiasm or fantasy or expectation. Maybe you enter in a body of wisdom with a bit more awareness. I don't know. This is what I felt that Richard was pinpointing towards. Like, okay, it's okay if they start with the 1-star. On one hand, people are going to be filtered by that, and on the other hand, they're going to step more authentically in whatever I invite them into. So it gave me a food for thought, the way I approach things as well. And at one point, I realized that I become cynical when I have the impression that I found the one, the instrument, the wisdom, and then my cynicism is oriented towards other bodies of work. It's like, yeah, Yeah, this is something interesting, but it's not complete, or it's not as complete as what I'm currently practicing, or, maybe it can take you to some parts, but it doesn't cover this or that. So it was a good occasion for me to look at my spiritual cynical slash judgy judgy persona. So I'm grateful that we can go deeper with that. So I'm really curious, Carrie, Joshua, or anyone in the public, if you have something else to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana. Yeah, what came up for me on this one, the spiritual cynic, the very first thing that came forward was a quote that, and I don't remember where it's from. Please forgive that. But the quote is, "The fault finder will find fault even in paradise," and whatever you expect to see, when you expect to find flaws, when you expect to find problems, when you want to poke holes in the thing, the very nature of creation itself and the way that we create our reality is a constant feedback system. And if whatever we're trying to find are problems, that's exactly what we're going to see. And being able to just recognize that process, and within ourselves, or to recognize when that process is playing out as a reflection in our relationships through other people. It's an opportunity to let go of the attachment, the need to defend things, and the need to protect our view, and instead just move from defending it into living it and sharing it and expressing it through our lives, through our being, through who we are, through what we do, and how we impact the lives around us. To model what we believe, not defend what we believe. And and so regardless of where I have seen that process going through, it's every time that I have gotten caught in that experience, whether it's in the defending of it, or I've gotten pulled into into me just trying to poke holes in a thing, or being argumentative, whatever it is. It's when I lose that ability to remain objective and to separate out, and just to and that's when the mind engages and starts to try to be clever, as opposed to letting the heart lead and just allowing it to model what we believe in our lives. So that's what came forward on this one for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joshua. That is always one of the things about the tricky part about really looking at these topics, is that we have a tendency to draw them to us. And thanks, Leanna, for that attunement. That was always a important aspect to reviewing these three topics, and coming back to that still point inside of the realization that we all sort of come from that same place, and that there is no separateness, and all of the things that are coming our way have a divine purpose to them. And that is one of the aspects of having these three topics come up, is that they are coming up for good reasons, and there's a purpose for them, and there's a place for them. but they are not something that remains. We can see how these topics that come in the form of our relationships and our interactions with people are things that come and they go. And it's very interesting to hear how they hook and trigger us in to the most vital parts and the sensitive parts. And it's usually that's where the place where we need to look. So it's all beautiful, and it's all very poignant in the sense that we have this topic, for example, of conspiracies, and essentially all of the conspiracies need to be coming to the surface, and we need to put them all to rest. Because there is no conspiracy. We are all just one being, and we are all coming back to that place of awareness where these things come up in order to be filtered out. And I think that it's a very important thing to be able to understand that always to come back to the thing that always remains, and that is the thing that always keeps us as one humanity. And so in the terms of this cynic, it is a big one because it prompts us to stand in our own truth. And I'm prey to this because I had to really laugh because I'm cynical of polyester suits. And it's funny because it's a story that goes back to my childhood because I loved nature and I loved being outside. And it was funny because every Sunday morning I was forced into a polyester suit and made to go to church on the most glorious days, summer days. I would be sweating in these polyester pants inside, and it gave me a trigger that whenever I see that and seeing people go into this formality, and I used to just look out the window and wish I was out there. And it was something that also prompted me to move into this territory of where the temple of God and the real church is in the open skies and in the streams and the ravines and the paths and forests and all those places that I grew up in, that I had like an affinity for. And here I was sitting in church wishing I was in church. And then I bring in this story about the polyester suit because honestly that was one of the things that I was just like, the first thing I could do was just rip out of that suit and get into some t-shirt and jeans. So, and that stuck with me. But this idea of also like back in that time when I first was becoming aware and starting my spiritual path, this is just in my 12 to 13 years of age, and I had at that point become very involved with a sport called BMX stunt riding, and I became very good at it. And I formed my own team at a very young age before I even had a driver's license or anything. I was about 12 or 13, and I'd have a team that we'd practice very hard, and we'd get invited in to do demonstrations and shows and at fairs and all kinds of places. And one of the things we used to do is we used to put on clinics for kids where we teach kids. And we used to go into really, neighborhoods where kids were poor and didn't have bikes, and we'd bring bikes with us. We had a sponsorship from a bike shop. And all back in that day, I used to just filter this all with the sense of me worshiping in the form of balance. And this is sort of what I alluded to as well in terms of the male and masculine and feminine. But dancing with this bicycle, it required this balance and this focus and this real point of awareness that really dissolved everything else around you. And I was really getting into this principle of sharing this. And I remember at that age, I was still being forced to go to, not forced, but as a being in the authority of your parents, you did what they said. So we went to church. While I was just becoming like really evolving in this sport and getting a foothold in it. And I remember this one moment, and it's really stuck with me for this long, hey, that this one individual came up to me in church and said, you need to come back to God. You need to let go of these worldly things you're doing, and this public display and all of this thing is no good. You need to come back to God. And I just was so floored by this that it made me really, really get fine-tuned about what the heck I was doing, because this was like that. I'm alluding to this because it was like the sniper attack. It was really like out of nowhere, and then it was gone. And nobody ever said that to me ever again, that there was like this, like I was a rock star that sold my soul to the devil. And that's sort of how it was portrayed. So it was a very distinct statement that was made that made me become very aware about, where I was with the ego, and to be deciphering as to where this was to be headed. And so, as we moved through that was something that I applied through all of my sort of outward displays of my skills and my careers and the things that I shared with the world. And as far as the conspiracies, the only thing I wanted to add here is the biggest conspiracy that I think that needs to be ever put to rest, that was ever created, was that heaven is anywhere outside of ourselves, or outside, or out there, or somewhere where we need to go. And that is the one conspiracy that we need to put to rest, because it comes back to the still point within us that, heaven is here and now. Heaven is the world that we need to be proper stewards to, that we need to care for, and that it isn't here for us to plunder. It's our home, and it's within heaven, and it's here and now. And that is one of the primary conspiracies that I don't know, I feel like it would just wipe out all the other ones. So, and I'll invite anybody to have any other insights want to share. That's sort of what I have garnished in this in these three topics, and invite anybody to spin off of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no worries. We're just flowing through them as we are inspired. Thank you, Joshua, for that clarity, for that, precision of pinpointing how this pattern of the cynical actually mirrors something in us, and it's reflecting back to us some aspects and some patterns. And it was really, you have the gift of precision and clarity, at least in this field. This is what I feel that you're bringing, and things become more easy to see and be aware of, pleasant or unpleasant. And it's really a joy to listen to you, and thank you for that. And Gary, wow, your vulnerability and the storytelling. I was just, immersed seeing the boy in the church looking outside, longing for the nature, for meeting God in His infinity. I feel like I could listen to you storytelling for a long while, because it's a deep, I feel it's a deep integrated experience. And I heard you, like while you were speaking, I've even asked myself these aspects of the ego we're actually contemplating. I think all of them are based on some wound, something that we were forced to take in, or we were wounded with. Because in the end, the cynical is somebody who probably was forced to connect with spirituality. Who knows? Maybe he saw people who got lost into that. And I really had a conversation recently with a friend, and she said she realized that the things we are most resistant to, like she had some family members who are really skeptical about her path, and and she doesn't do any crazy stuff. It's just meditation, mindfulness, stuff like that. And she realized that the things we reject and we resist and we find flaws to and we resist, maybe there is a resource that it's repressed in us, and it's hard for us to acknowledge that we grasp to something, we cling to the security of the worldview we already have. And on the other hand, it's, as Joshua also said, is when I feel the need to defend. And Richard also pinpointed this. If you need to defend your truth or your path or your practice, that's a warning sign for you as well. So maybe the cynicals are there to just teach us, the patience and the trust in whatever we're doing. Because if we need to defend it, I think there's a dash, a bigger or smaller dash of doubt in ourselves as well about what we're doing. And in the end, isn't it? It's about modeling. It's about our presence. It's about how we take in and how we let all of this through. That's the sign for me of true integrated spirituality. And I keep, feeling this in myself, especially with this material, like which one triggered me most and which one something in me just said, no, I'm not doing that, like very quickly. If something said, oh, I'm not doing that, it's probably something. So it's the same with the cynical, like it's like, oh no, this is not good. Or even the snipers, because the sniper are just coming through and just the hit and run stuff, and they just go. They don't wait for the feedback, they don't wait for the response, they don't wait for the connection, for the clarification of that. And is this quickness of judging. This is what I see in these two aspects. Because of a reason or another, I don't want to go deeper. I just, put a label, and I'm not willing to go deeper. And in the cynical and in the sniper, I think it's a defensive mechanism somehow. And I'm talking about myself as well. Whenever I'm cynical or whenever I just hit and run, what am I trying to protect? What part of me didn't have the chance to meet and see God as my soul wanted, just as Gary said. And I've developed an aversion towards, the polyester suit or whatever that means. For people, it could be the, incense smell, or the drudgery of, oh, instead of being happy that Sunday is coming, I'm just, oh my God, Sunday is coming. Yes, so thank you for your sharing, for your insight, and I'm happy that we have I am welcome and just happy to see you. And you're free to share your wisdom.
Hello, good morning. This is Amy, and can you all hear me okay? I'm actually sitting outside in the sunshine, and there's a little bit of a breeze, and so if at any point you can't hear, just let me know. It's interesting. I'm in North Carolina in the States, and we've been dealing with such polarities with weather. So much of the country is getting historic cold and freezing and blizzard, and yet here we're having very unusual warm. It was 83 degrees yesterday, and so I'm taking a moment to sit outside barefoot with short sleeve and let the sun just penetrate. I just wanted to, you've all touched on so many things as I continue to listen, so many things come up. I think, as Joshua was beginning, he was really kind of speaking to this, the thing that really I feel like has continued to bring me back to this work, to this self-exploration over and over again. I've always been on a quest to just understand how people work and to learn more, and following that curiosity, how I can respond and engage with the world. I would say that my challenge is often around when I am surrounded by people who tend to be looking for what's missing in the moment, as opposed to truly enjoying what is. And I am able to spend time generously listening to them to a point. And when it feels like it's hit that threshold and it's been on repeat, I become quick to respond, or actually I would say react, almost in a way that I want to just, how can I just shut this down as quickly as possible? I actually create environments. That's what I do for my work. And I look at all of the elements and how all of the senses and how those are affected. And so I think, so much of even what I do unconsciously is trying to just create this perfect environment for humans to just thrive. And but the truth is, and I've been being made aware of it through the Gene Keys with a word called interference. Just that, okay, how do we actually we can create this perfect environment, but we're human and we're going to live in the environment, and there are going to be things that come up, and everyone is dealing with different things at different times. And so how do you just sit with them and know that what they're going through is exactly what they're supposed to be going through, and what they're processing and the way that they're doing it is exactly what they're supposed to be processing? And I think for myself, this understanding of the practice that I'm getting, and just being able to sit with them from a place of neutrality and truly listen, generously listen, and give them that space. And also the learning of when is anything that I have to say asked for or necessary, or is it truly just in that sitting with them and being my light and my presence in that moment with them, that truly is enough. I think, I've been looking at this response as opposed to reaction, and the breath. It's funny. As I've been working on this response element, there have been some things that have been pointed out by my 12-year-old son, who is at that stage, who loves to point out all the things that I'm doing. But one was with regards to sighing in the moment. I think instead of reaction, there was a bit of a sigh that was coming out. And I actually had heard at some point, I think that, I had shared, this is actually me just breathing. You always hear, take a breath. I'm simply breathing in the moment. And then at some point after that, I actually heard that the sigh is like the first prayer. And I just really loved that distinction. And then the newest reaction, I guess, that I have been doing that wasn't the sigh. It was that he has pointed out was moved onto clenched teeth. That I'm like clenching my jaw in a moment. And so when we had a discussion this week, I shared with him, I said, actually, I know you're giving me a hard time about it, but in that moment, I'm actually keeping, pausing and allowing myself to be in the moment and not react in the moment. And I said, and while, you can certainly make fun of that in the moment, my ultimate goal is to evolve to the point where that's no longer necessary. I was like, I'm not quite there yet. I was like, do you think that is possible? Maybe. But I just share that because it just humored me, the way that I'm seeing some of these things play out, and the way that I'm becoming aware of things that I don't even know that I am doing, and yet how I can see in that just growth and expansion, and moving in the direction of what my ultimate goal in regards to response would be. I think when I really go back to where I think this began, Carrie kind of circled this back for me, but and the work we've been doing recently on the Venus retreat, just where we were looking at the age of 13 to 21, and then taking a step back further, it just became apparent to me that I believe it was 13 that I had one of probably my life's most, at that moment, most traumatic experiences. One that I have actually had to take with me and continued to work with over and over the years, just to release. It was in a way tied to the church, and yet not. It was a decision that I had made, and I think I was in the moment trying to make the best possible decision, given the things that had led up to that point. It did not work out that way for me, and it was quite traumatic, and I ended up having to publicly apologize to the church for this other thing that happened, with no one really knowing what had truly happened in the moment except for me. And that was a very interesting place to sit at that age, especially given the fact that up until that point, again, it was all done in love and with the knowledge they had, probably a logical step, but energetically, it was very, very difficult for me to sit with both of those things at the same time. I believe from that point forward, there was some separation that occurred with me just as I kind of cynically looked at things and just began a very strange path that I think was partially inspired by feeling like, one, I was being misunderstood for what my true intent was, and that my true intent was always felt like, from my perspective, was coming from the best and highest choice. Even in those moments that it may not have appeared that way to others, I was able to truly see it for what it was, and that it was something for me along my path. So I think there was this bit of feeling of misunderstanding that certainly started to aid in this reaction. I then began what strangely I feel like was a series of kind of near-death experiences. I think it was very possible that I was just in reaction to this event. I started to really kind of push boundaries and just really did not have fear around the finality of anything. I absolutely understood the preciousness of life, but I think this was just part of my path. But in those near-death experiences, and not one, but I think by the end I had come to 9, flying and falling 40 feet. There was a series, they had 40 feet involved, be it in a car, on a boat, flying through the air, up a mountain. But in those moments, I did have the opportunity to open to all that is, and to really feel and sense in my soul that remembrance of the connection that's pulsating through everything, through every living thing on this planet. And so I believe I also would really find this like frustration almost when I was having to witness someone just really stuck in this place of only seeing what was missing and missing all that was truly there. And so that has been the work that I have been doing, is just learning how to be in that place, and navigate those moments of all of us being human, and just embracing them with love and compassion in the moment, as opposed to going to a place of reaction or response, or even any sort of let me tell you what I know. But just actually just being in that moment.
was beautiful, Amy. Thank you for that share. And God, you there were so many layers that you brought with that one share. It's like, okay. The first thing I wanted to speak to is I too come from a design background, so I was able to connect very intimately with what you were speaking about regarding really moving into that space of listening and receiving what they are, what their intent is and what their needs are, and all of the subtleties, all of the things that they're not saying that you have to listen for. And and then while you were speaking to that, I was reflecting on how many places that applies, right? Just to receive, just to listen, and to allow, and then once all of that has been received, then we can apply our wisdom and our insight and our teachings and all of the things and everything that we're there for, right? And so that's where kind of like what Carrie was speaking to, when he was speaking about the balance between the polarity of the divine feminine and the sacred masculine. That's that dance, that's that internal dance. And I saw that being reflected through in that part of your share, just to draw that in and receive it, and then apply the wisdom, and then take action, take inspired action based on your expertise and your experience and your wisdom. And I see that can work in so many other ways. And I also love the distinction that you draw between reaction and responsiveness. And that too is something that deeply resonates with me and has for quite a while. Because to react is to come from a wounded space. Is to act, with our wounding as the driver, or our ego as the driver. And ego and wounding are very closely linked. But to respond is to approach it from an integrated space, and not trying to be clever, but trying to offer our wisdom in an authentic way. And that distinction is something that is so beautiful to make and to recognize. And I honor you for exploring that and really just moving into that. And there's so much, Amy. There's so much that you said that resonates. I'm going to go ahead and rest it here, though, and let one of our other hosts respond if they'd like. But thank you so much for offering your authentic share.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Joshua. That is a really beautiful response. And I would like to also chime in. Amy, thank you for coming on and sharing your insights on this topic, because, I resonate with this. I think that I have a similar experience with taking your own spiritual authority at a very young age and standing up for moving in your own divinity and your own relationship with the divine, and how it is incredibly disassociative when the whole community that you were raised with turns your back on you, and you know that God did not, and you can just move forward with this understanding, because this is all you have to go on. Because when you are raised in this kind of dogmatism, it is a very difficult thing to step out of. I think that there is a lot to do here with this cynicism. Is needs to be seen as I know that in the moment it can't be seen as a good thing, but it made me realize that we have a room of designers here. I'm also a garden designer by trade, and really resonate with this concept of being able to create environments and how we are always moving into this needing to believe in the thing that is not built yet. We need to really build that. And that creation in our minds is an impossible, it's like when it's not in reality, it's an impossible thing. And when we present it, nothing has been created. So we have to decipher all the cynicism that comes aboard that says that it's not possible, because we got to believe in something deeper to make it happen. And sometimes that little bit of cynicism is just as equal to having a supportive team that is rallying you along to the finish line. Because what we discover is that with that cynicism, it provides us the itch that we just, we want to kind of prove them wrong. And this has been like a lot of what has driven any kind of endeavor, really, from wanting to fly to, learning a new trick on a bike. So we need to move through that, and we need it to be able to fuel. It's like fuel for us to prove the impossible. And it has been such a, just your share, Amy, has been really beautiful in this, this space between is to abide in it, to abide in that noticing before responsiveness. And we feel all those energies coming up, but if we don't respond to them, how beautiful we see it playing out as a natural evolution. And, we get to have these moments where we see that, life just takes care of life. And, coming back to like being able to have some gratitude for those really traumatic experiences where you thought you were on your own, and you had to be your own renegade, and you had to really celebrate your own rewards, because you're your own entrepreneur, you're running your own business, or you've created your own unique environments. So I wanted to just share that, because I remember this as going back to that age range where I was doing this professionally at a very young age, and where we were doing, I was inventing my own maneuvers on a bicycle, because it was the originality that made me stand out. And so a lot of that time, something new, where something was never done before, had a lot of cynicism behind it, in terms of like, that can never be done, just give up, like you're never going to be doing that. And then like doing something over and over, tripping and falling and hurting and getting up and just believing it to the point where you're almost getting it. And then you see everything turn to everybody sharing in the excitement that you're actually going to make it. You're actually going to do it. And then the encouragement is there when you finally land something, and you can then celebrate with everybody. And, the people that were cynical to you before are then, going and trying it, because they're like, oh man, it is possible. So this is how beautiful it is to see evolution come into play, and how we all are interlinked in this amazing dance where we have these relationships and these experiences come into our lives, and they are exactly the fuel you need, and how we can integrate that into a moment of restraint and in our response, and allow it to just watch it evolve. It's something that's difficult, and when we're young, and when we're in the depths of it. But just, your breath is your savior on this, because your breath will take you back to that still point, and what you'll find there is the purity and the light within all. And that is, where we have to come back to be able to have that freedom, and we become liberated by that. And now that we're in the 55th gene key and studying that in this cosmic cycle, it is very important, because these traps, as Richard calls them, are the basically the wording for the opposite of freedom. When we're trapped, we're not free. And so we need to be able to drop all of this to be free. And it's kind of an interesting perspective, because as we move into this liberated feeling of abiding in that space, of seeing it being all a gift, then we cannot even speak about being bound without looking back and see that we've been free the whole time. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
And there was silence. Wow. Thank you, Amy. As Joshua said, so many layers, such a rich sharing, as a story, but also as a feeling. Like I felt you reliving your emotions, your experience. It had such a depth, your sharing, and thank you for your vulnerability and for this, fulfilling the story. Like I got at the end to feel the accomplishment of the hero's journey. Like as Joshua said, there is the wisdom that you gathered is already made aware and conscious, and while you're sharing it, I could feel the deep integration of that. And thank you for bringing your presence here. Also, some things that you've mentioned, I would put them on T-shirts, like "Be your own renegade." That's a good. That's a good reminder. Also, the way you've pivoted the energy of the cynical into, make it a fuel for your journey, for your path, for your uniqueness. In the end, that's the alchemy, isn't it? That's the alchemy of love, and that's the alchemy of trust. Like how we can use whatever comes towards us as a fuel. And Amy was saying about this teenaging time in the Venus sequence. I think that's the time when the renegade wakes up, like when we see the injustice and when we see the distortions and the corruption, and also when we don't feel seen and accepted and acknowledged for what we are and for the originality, uniqueness, and difference that we're trying to bring forth. And I felt as you were expressing that experience that there is a catharsis happening when we actually take that self that we used to be and that used to go through that experience and bring it forth in a space of understanding, acceptance, and then in hindsight just realizing what, even if it was a hurtful and hard moment, how it catalyzed such a growth and such a wisdom. And thank you for sharing the whole thread. For me, it was a deep remembrance and connection also with my IQ and seeing some things that I couldn't see them before, because the hero wasn't there to just integrate the experience. So thank you for that. It was a really valuable insight for me. And Joshua and Carrie, you've enriched the field with your views on what Amy shared in such a beautiful and clear way. And thank you. I feel a bit, the balance, the balance you were talking about. I would like to go a bit more into maybe touch a bit on the conspiracists as well. But I just want to know how you also feel. We're coming closer to an hour and a half. And just tell me if you feel to touch a bit on that.
I wanted to actually share one thing that doesn't have anything to do with the conspiracy side of it, but right before you spoke, I actually took off my microphone for a second because I wanted to just really acknowledge in celebration what I feel like I have been experiencing over the last year with the gift of all of these global communities, and being able to truly connect with others who have the same understanding that I always had and the knowingness that I've carried with me always. And, it's just been such a tremendous gift, as it has to do with just like creation and design and even the work that I was doing. I had reached a point probably about 9 months before the world shut down where I actually said to a contractor I was working with that I had purchased 13 books and I shared all of the topics. And that obviously I was getting ready to go on a little bit of a journey, and not to be worried if they didn't see me for a little bit in the regular ways, that I would be just fine and in good company. So at the time that the world actually kind of shut down, I had already been in gestation for 9 months and quite comfortable with it. I think the biggest change on my end at first was just that now my whole family was home with me all the time as well. So many silver linings, so much learning and transpired in that. But one of the things that got really sticky with me, I think, as timelines were shifting and getting stretched and twirled around, and supply chains and parts, and suddenly my business that had been about creation and all of this suddenly became about parts and pieces, and I began to be really burdened with it, and it really began to weigh on me. And as I continued on the spiritual path in tandem at the same time, I began to really question, like, how does this fit into what I'm being called to do? It's feeling so material and so heavy. And I'm happy to report that I believe it was the spring of the last year that I actually at some point had the realization of, life's purpose, and the fact that truly for me, and I think for everyone, it is being our true light in the world, in every place that we find ourselves, and that this work that we do, whatever we're being called to, our curiosity in every moment, is really just the vehicle for which we have the opportunity to shine that light. And that realization opened me up in such a profound way. The pressure valve was completely released of am I doing the right thing, or this whole contemplation that our minds love to just cycle on constantly. And it opened up this whole place of allowing, and just being. The interestingly, this week, what I've been spending time with and contemplating is just this idea of the Divine Mother and the fact and creation energy. I've always been very, very drawn to nature and to creation. And just this realization that when we are truly focusing and even using this as just a tool for our expression in the world, a way for us to bring in and digest all that we're learning and all that is coming to us, all the layers of understanding. But if we're using this creation process for that, truly for ourselves, then the natural byproduct can be, this livelihood that supports us. But it doesn't even matter at that point because we are using it in the way and experience it, sits and being it in every moment of every day just for the sake of doing it. So I just wanted to share that one little bit as we had kind of tapped into this creation energy and also just this understanding of, our creator and the Divine Mother as creator. And it was also very interesting to me as I began to see on this next step that I'm engaging on and that had come to me after having this realization, how it actually fractaled right back to kind of where I began, what I was studying in college, and then where I've gone since there. It kind of was bringing me right back to that original place again in a new and unique way. And so that was just has been a really exciting development and over this last week or two.
I love that. It's like the way I say it is like leaving breadcrumbs for your future self. I get to play with that all the time, and I absolutely just love it when I see that process unfold. And yeah, that was awesome. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. Liana, did you want to kick us off on the final topic?
Well, I would just stay here and contemplate the thread that Amy has opened. I would just mention a bit more about it, and thank you for bringing that forth, Amy. This is actually what contemplation is about. You mentioned your 9 months, and then I remember you mentioned your near-death experiences, and it clicked like you had a series of rebirths actually in your life. And when you are talking about this creation and this ability to actually create and bring your light in the world through whatever you do, I felt the phoenix in your words, like the transmission of the phoenix, like don't be afraid to die and be reborn, no matter how many times, because your light will only shine brighter. So thank you, like from the depth of my being for your sharing. And I remembered also something that Carrie and Joshua were saying about them also being involved in the design, and as Carrie beautifully put in the chat, like creating sanctuaries. And how another transferable skill from that, in addition to what Joshua said about that capacity to listen and to respond, to actually listen to what's being said and not being said, with your area of expertise, is the capacity to tend to the inner environment as well. So I just connected to our inner gardens and our inner terrains and our inner rooms and everything that is actually reflected and we can also enrich and tend to while doing this work in the world. And thank you for, stimulating that image. And I'm really happy I'm in a company of beautiful designers and sanctuary creators. It's now that I know that, of course, it makes sense that I feel good in your space. So yes, I will touch a bit more on the conspiracists. I don't know. It's for me, it's a really tricky thing, especially with the times we're living in, and we know there has been so much, polarity around in the pandemic, with the COVID, with whatever is happening. Is there a hidden agenda? Is it not? And now we have a war to contemplate about, which also, who knows what. And Richard was saying about this aspect of the spiritual ego, that there's always something, there is some hidden elite or hidden government or, Bill Gates or the 5G. That's the thing he mentioned. And the conspiracy is always trying to save you from these agendas and, evil people and systems and groups. And the conspiracy doesn't trust your sovereignty and your path. Like, if I am to take the vaccine and something bad happens to me, that's my path. And I will do as best when I take a decision, of course. Each and every one of us is, doing a research. And if my research took me someplace, maybe that's where I was supposed to be. And Richard said that, there's always a grain of truth in these conspiracies. But it's beneficial for us to come from a place of wholeness and discernment. And we're actually going back to our inner authority and call it intuition or God's guidance or whatever, and trust that it will take us through, instead of, getting lost in all kinds of possibilities, probabilities that actually, and Richard beautifully pointed this out, is a way of denial, is a way of blaming the other, of putting the responsibility on them. So it's a way of avoiding my part in the story, as long as there is something out there who is, always trying to get me, or always having this agenda against humanity. And if I put my energy there, what energy do I have left to tend my inner garden, isn't it? So that's that's what I took from this part. And I would be happy if Carrie and Joshua, if you have something else to add, or anyone else from the public, if you would like to join us in our, last some tens of minutes. I think we have another 10 minutes around. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana. I think we can start wrapping it up, and I'm very grateful for the shares here. And the one aspect of that, I just wanted to shed some light around. I think, Amy, you shared how, you gain these insights when you're in nature. And for me, that is like the main point of what the work that I'm currently doing is, working with the elements. And, it is and has always been a perspective to keep in mind for all of us when we're dealing with this spiritual ego and the different aspects of it, is that there is nothing that is really we can take claim to. It's more of what gifts we are having that are moving through us. I don't think that I can create anything new from nature. It's a matter of just reassembling and like being able to encourage a certain direction by planting a tree in a certain place. It's like working with, not that I'm a manipulator for. And it has always been for me a bit of a way for me to sidestep the ego by being able to say that it is the tools that I'm using that is the way I'm doing something. It's not me, it's the way I use a tool, or the way I use these elements, or the way that it is being brought forth is just moving through me, and therefore I can't take claim that it's me. It's a universal aspect. And I believe that these are elements to which we are moving towards, that we can be able to celebrate beauty not in a form of egotism, but in a form of deliverance through all of our combined realizations, and by combining our light together. So thank you for that. And I really resonated with this conspiracy that we have about these viruses that are coming in and out constantly into our universe. But I was also very much in that gestation period pre-COVID. I was actually in a ceremonial retreat for a month in the deep jungles of Peru, and this was just before COVID, and I had come across a very profound realization when I landed there that I had been there before in a dream, and in that dream state there was this sense that I was not returning. And in that moment of going through the ceremonies throughout the week, it became stronger and stronger that there was something that was not allowing me to go back. And I, at that time, nobody knew what it was, and I kept it to myself. But it was all of a sudden, like, where it was time to go, I said, I don't know how I'm going to get home. And they're like, what do you mean? You got your plane ticket? You got this and this? And like, listen, I don't know how I'm going to make it home. And then as soon as I got to the airport, all of the information started trickling through, because we didn't even have a Wi-Fi connection. And so it was that impulse that gave me the impetus to be able to actually move and really give it an emphasis to get myself home. And at that point where I was able to push this through, it was I got held up in Lima, and we had to then I got up super early, like 3 hours before my flight, and I took an Uber to the airport, and I was at the Lima airport has gates all around it because it's not in a safe community. And so what happened was that this Uber driver got me to the airport, but then just in front of the Uber, the gates were closing, and I didn't really know what was going on. And he just grabbed my bags and threw them at me. And he said, look at that side door. It's still open. Run to the side door. And I run to that side door, run through, and I look behind me. Everything's closing. And I'm the last one to make it through the airport to get out of there. Everybody else that I knew was stuck there for weeks. And so it was like that same thing got me through, got me home, and got me to my family, and got me to be, not stuck somewhere. And so thank you for sharing that. And that was very important that we kind of clue into our intuition and give them their credence. So thank you for that. And I will hand this over to Liana to close off for us. Thank you.
Actually, I'd like to chime in here. I'm picking up on a common thread, and I've seen it coming through in some of Amy's share, and also, in the conspiracy piece and all of that. And not that Amy was speaking about conspiracy at all, but it's this. It's the trap of reacting to the external as opposed to receiving it as an opportunity. And when we have all the conspiracies that are all around, and they're all around, right? And that's okay. There is value in peeling back the layers and seeing the mechanics of what's happening in the shadows and all of that. There is value there, absolutely. And also, to get stuck there is a trap. And the piece that Amy was sharing, where I see a connection to this, was in her experience when her practice actually went from a beautiful creative flow to dealing with the minutia, the bits and pieces, and trying to put all the fragments together just to get something done. And and what that brought up for me there at that part of the share is the value of resistance. Because when we have resistance to something in our lives, whether it be within ourselves or whether it be something that we're seeing reflecting to us back in our lives, through our jobs, through our relationships, through whatever vehicle it's that opportunity is coming to us, it's those resistances that are the signs that say, go here, love here. Because when we bring our compassion into our resistance, that is when freedom unlocks. And that's true for ourselves. That's true for our relationships. That's true for our institutions where the shadow maneuverings are taking place. It's bringing our light and bringing our compassion and bringing our authentic, inspired action to everything that we come into contact with through all of these challenges, quote unquote, / opportunities to enliven. And so that's the common thread that I was picking up on there, was simply the opportunities that are hiding in our resistances. In whatever level, whatever Zoom level of experience we're in, whether we're in our personal life and we're experiencing it there, or we're, experiencing it on a global level and we're thinking about global conspiracies, the opportunity is the same. And it always, always starts with us living from our hearts. I'll rest it there. Thank you.
Amen. That was a whole ministry right there. I have no words left, actually. Joshua, I'm really grateful that you released this voice of freedom coming through you. It was deep and true. Carrie, deeply, deeply honored and happy that you managed to come today. I invite you both, if you want to join again in 2 weeks. It will be a joy for me to have you, to listen to you, to share your presence. Amy, I'm happy happy for God for bringing you here with us. It was such a harmonious flow here on the stage, such a deep contemplation, and thank you for the richness of what you brought in. I would be happy to hear you again whenever we have the chance. And each and every one of you being present with us at the beginning or towards the end or listening to us later, I really pray that whatever love and wisdom and truth was shared here to reach you in the depth of your being. And thank you. And I wish you a really balanced and loving weekend. And see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. I'm completely, and I thank you for closing that. And thank you for the invitation. And I'll do my best to be back in 2 weeks' time.
With love. If you feel, I will just leave the room open for a while to linger in the frequency.